Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. And good afternoon to the panelists. It's been a very interesting, I walked in when the Minister of Sikkim was speaking, and it was such an interesting session, to listen to him. And of course, I've always listened to Professor Tantri and his podcasts, so it was good to listen to him as well. Our session today is, of course, about key enablers for self-employment in cities. And this is such an interesting topic. A little bit of a background about Women's World Banking. I head South Asia for this organization. We're a 45-year-old organization based out of New York, but the roots are very Indian and very microfinance. One of our co-founders, of course, is Ila Ben. And so the work that we've done, while predominantly has been on the rural side, also involves a lot of urban. Just wanted to share a couple of points before I kind of throw it open to, we have very interesting panelists, and, I'd love to hear from them. But just a couple of things that I wanted to share from the work that we've done. We've reached about 75 odd million in India, 75 odd million women. And the work that we've done on the payment side, with of course, Sohini is an old friend from NPCI. We've also worked with private players like Google Pay. And it was so amazing to see that in the urban milieu, and not to mention the rural milieu as well, women are, and men, they just need a little bit of a hand-holding, and they just kind of take off. And I think there was a reference to the JS's point in the morning as well about, about how digital inclusion is such a key to driving self-employment. The second part was also about the work about urban mobility. We've done work with Urban Company in many cities, and we actually figured that urban mobility actually leads to 2 or 3 things. One is that she is able to actually do one more job, leading to an increase in income of about 5,966. We have to be precise. We're a non-profit. And also, the volatility in terms of the jobs came down significantly. Direct correlation between mobility and urban jobs. All of these, I'm sure, are part of the conversations across the multiple panels over the next couple of days. But I think what Mr. Tantri was also mentioning earlier is about the coming together, and what the Honorable Minister also mentioned, is the coming together of the ecosystem. And we're talking about the micro, meso, and the macro level, really. I mean, it's got to be the end consumer and how to strengthen her skills. Equally, the private and public partnership in terms of the institutions and making them show the business case. And, of course, for the government as well to participate from a policy-making perspective. And so we have a very interesting panel consisting of Professor Jain from IIM Calcutta, they're all going to introduce themselves, but he's done some very interesting work with his innovation lab. We also have Sohini from NPCI, who's, I would say, a leading expert when it comes to payments and retail credit in this country. We have Mrs. Hena Usman, from the MOSD, and we will understand how the skilling and the gaps in the skilling, is so key in terms of taking people out of poverty and into empowerment. And of course, we have Mrs. Garima Kapoor from the DFS, kind of guiding, sitting where she is in terms of the, DFS, in terms of what are the other kind of products and services that are required for urban livelihood. And of course, we also have a state representative in terms of Sangeeta Raiyani from one of the advanced states in Gujarat, and a long-time partner of NULM from NHB. We have Mr. Vishal Goyal. So I'm going to start off the panel, and I'm conscious of the time. I'm going to start off with a question to Ms. Hena Usman. Yeah. She is, of course, the Joint Secretary in the Ministry of Skill and Development and Entrepreneurship. Ma'am, maybe I would ask for a little bit of an introduction about yourself.
So I'm Hena Usman, and I'm working as Joint Secretary, Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. I'm looking after I'm looking after the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, and I'm also looking after the entrepreneurship vertical. So that's about it.
Thank you. And I mean, in terms of the skilling initiatives that your ministry is particularly taking to bridge the gap between the workforce, and I think there was again a reference to this workforce in plenty in this country. I don't think there's any shortage of workforce. But how do we make them ready and in the rapidly changing urban job markets? It'll be very interesting to hear what you're doing.
So thank you. So as you all know that the ministry is a relatively new ministry, and we're about 10 years old. And the Skill India mission is also completing around 10 years. And there are 3 schemes which are a part of the Skill India program. And these schemes are the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. You have the Jan Shikshan Sanstans, which was set up with the purpose of bringing skilling to the doorstep. And that was basically the clientele and the target group of the Jan Shikshan Sanstan is basically women. And then you have the National Apprenticeship Promotion Scheme. So in terms of numbers, under the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana alone, we have skilled around 1.64 crore people. The Jan Shikshan Sanstan again around a little bit over 30 lakhs, and under the National Apprenticeship Promotion Scheme around 49 lakhs. Now that's for numbers. Coming to think about the sectors, we at the ministry believe in skilling being aspirational, and that is what we are working towards. So that skilling should also become the first choice. Skilling should not be the last option. Talking in terms of livelihood, we also want skilling to be demand driven, for it to be industry aligned, and the purpose is that skilling should not be for skilling's sake. Skilling should be linked to outcomes. So we're also designing the next version of the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana and the Skill India mission as we go on, as we move on. Because as you see, schemes are evolving. So we learn from the experiences and we learn from the feedbacks. Now regarding the skill gaps, we had set up under the Sankalp scheme of the World Bank, we had set up a mechanism for drawing up the district skill development plans. Now we hope to strengthen that further. And the idea is to get the information from the ground level so that the district skill development plans then feed into the state skill development plans, and then we are able to draw up the plans for the nationwide skilling. The skilling again should be sector specific so that we are able to align with the needs of the sector. And as everyone pointed out, that we have a huge demographic dividend, which while it is a challenge, it also is an opportunity for us. And skilling, as of now, we have a national qualification register. The national qualification register has more than 2,500 NSQF, which means the National Skill Qualification Framework Aligned Job Roles. Now, these job roles have been given a certain level, but so that the courses which we give, they are tailor-made to the skilling requirements. And then we would also want, as you would be aware, the ministry, the government has recently launched the PM Setu. So what I spoke to you about was a short-term skilling ecosystem. Regarding catering to the long-term skilling, we have a huge network of NSTIs and also ITIs in the states. The ministry looks after the policy matters of the ITIs, and the state governments look after the monitoring and other matters of the ITIs. And there are about 3,000 government ITIs, and about, in all we can say there are more than 14,000 ITIs. Now the PM Setu scheme, which has been launched, that looks at the upgradation of about 1,000 ITIs in the hub and spoke model. That is where we want to have sector-specific models. We want to set up centers of excellence. And as I spoke about skilling becoming aspirational, there's a strong link between the center, the state, and the industry partnership. So we're looking at industry also at projecting demands and also giving their inputs regarding framing of the curriculum so that the curriculum is more aligned to the requirements of the industry. So we intend making the workforce job ready so that they can find employment. So now the focus is not only on as you would say, wage employment, but also entrepreneurship. As of now, the ministry has two autonomous institutes, the Indian Institute of Entrepreneurship and the National Institute of Entrepreneurship and Small Business Development. The Indian Institute of Entrepreneurship caters to the requirements of the Northeastern region, and National Institute of Entrepreneurship and Small Business Development looks after the entrepreneurship requirements across the country. The centers of the National Institute of Entrepreneurship and Small Business Development are housed in the various NSCIs or the National Skill Training Institute. So in terms of the, out of the 2,500 job roles which I mentioned, about 600 job roles are of the new age sectors. Now the new age sectors, when we speak about the new age sectors, it includes AI, robotics, green jobs, healthcare which is emerging. Then we have in terms of the aviation sector, even skilling for construction workers. Like skilling, again, the skilling programs are about short-term trainings, which extend to about 3 months. And then we have something called recognition of prior learning, which happens in the industry premises, and where the idea is to provide, because skill, again, has to be upgraded. So we are also looking at diverse sectors like the construction workers. We are partnering with other ministries as in Namaste. And just to share that all the ministries are doing some part of skilling in their own ecosystem. The ministry, as a nodal ministry, wants to provide a common platform for which there is a Skill India Digital Hub. And the Skill India Digital Hub has around more than 3,600. You have industry-aligned courses on that, and then you have more than 13.6 registered learners. So the idea is, plus the interconnectivity or the linkages with the National Career, the NCS platform, and also with the eShram portal. And the idea is that we, in this, we're looking at the API integration with the other platforms of the other major flagship schemes of the government, so that we are able to aggregate the demand for skilling. We are able to provide a seamless kind of a lifelong skilling kind of a thing, where skilling can be tracked also on a digital platform. And then we are able to aggregate the demand and also tailor-made the skill courses to meet the demands.
Thank you so much. That was phenomenal. I mean, what a comprehensive approach. Breadth, depth, industry partnership, new age, traditional industry, all of which, I mean, so it seems like such a comprehensive way in which we are addressing the need of skilling in this country for the youth. I'll now come to, I think it's a natural segue, sir, to you. When we're talking about skilling and students, I think IIM comes to mind right away. Right. And so I just wanted to ask you, in terms of what lessons can India learn from global models, and specifically the venture that IMC has been driving, what are the kind of, how do you think academia and think tank can really, join up at the hip, so to speak of, to solve this problem?
Thank you. I would like to start with deriving a few thoughts from what was mentioned in the morning. So the Secretary talked about Prime Minister's thinking. Economic thinking in urban areas. That is one thing which we in IIM Calcutta Innovation Park has been doing. So we have actually thought about economic thinking in rural areas. And just to give you an update, we have worked with multiple state governments. We have worked under the National Rural Livelihood Mission. In the last 5 years, we have been able to create or help more than 60 didis become crorepati didis. Not lakpati didis, crorepati didis. So, that is something which we have done. That is what we are talking about, the economic thinking. And some of the learnings which we have, and it's a two-way process. We learn from them as much as we gave back to them. As IIM Calcutta Innovation Park, we are also on a learning mission. We learn all the time. And we can take this to the urban areas and also create urban crorepati didis. That's something which we can do. Why do we say we can do that? Because we help in about 5 to 6 different areas. One is we talk about product. So we help these people, the ideas are there. how to develop it into a product, how to do packaging, how to do marketing, how to have go-to-market strategies. We help the smallest scale level do that. Second is capacity building. I was mentoring a woman entrepreneur from a small remote village in Manipur. I asked her, I said, what do you do? She makes handicrafts out of bamboo and, waste products, agricultural products which go there. I said, what's your income? She says, 8 to 10,000 rupees. I said, look, we will connect you with the markets, we'll get you there, we'll get you the strategies, we'll get you funding, you will increase to 50, 60,000 rupees. What will you do with that? I expected she will say, I'll buy a television, I'll buy a refrigerator, whatever. Her answer stumped me. She said, currently I have trained 30 people in my village. If I get 50,000, I will train 300 people in the villages. Now that is social incubation. And that teaches me a lot. It tells me that the desire is there, the economic thinking is there, they need enablers. And we as IIM Calcutta Innovation Park think we are one of the enablers. So I talked about product, I talked about capacity building. We build capacities, we tell them how to do. Another example, there's this lady, she was just doing some stitching work. We trained her, we took her to Tenera, the Tatas and the others. She got interested, she started doing work in Kantha. Her products in Kantha are now exported to more than 25 countries in the world. Her passport is thicker than 2 of my passports because that's the type of work she does. Now for me that is incubation. That is how people have come up. And not only has she become one of the leading incubators for us, but she's now doing mentoring with us. So for example, there is a district in West Bengal in which a lot of girls were trafficked. So one of the industrialists in Calcutta set up a school there to teach them how to stitch. Now this lady said, I will go teach them how to do Kantha work and I will ensure their product gets sold so that more than 600 of those girls who would have been trafficked will now become earning, useful members of society. That is incubation. That is mentoring. So we do mentoring. So we allocate mentors to each and every startup. We have a pool. IIM Calcutta has more than 10,000 alums and they are available to me as mentors. So we find the right mentor for the right company who can take them through the process. That's one more thing which we do. We teach them compliance. So we have tied up with the Ministry of Corporate Affairs through IICA to run programs on compliances that you must become GST enabled, you must have UPI, you must have companies, how to file forms, how to take help. We teach them compliance because you cannot become useful members of society unless you are complying with all the laws of the land. We don't want any of our incubating companies not to comply with the laws of the land. We teach them finance, we teach them balance sheets. So we take professors from IIM Calcutta who actually within 3 months give them a crash MBA program, right from go-to-market strategies to financing and others, so that they become useful members. They learn how to make balance sheets. They learn how to do unit economics. I mean, we have had ladies who say we are satisfied with 10,000 rupees. That's our income. Then we go to unit economics. We tell them it's not your income. What about the work you are doing? What about the work your children are doing? Have you taken that into account? No. So we teach them the basics of accounting. We teach them the basics of unit economics. We teach them basic finance so that again they are able to run their companies effectively. And one more thing, last but not the least, we use relevant innovative technologies which are relevant to their business so that we can drive their business forward. And fortunately, in IIM Calcutta, of all the companies we have incubated, currently our success rate is upwards of 80% in terms of incubation. And that is because we never give funds upfront. We tell them we'll give you one tranche, we set milestones for them, you complete the milestone, come to us for the second tranche. Complete the second milestone, come to us for the third tranche. And then we mentor them through the process. One of the problems we have found in the incubation system, pardon me for saying we are in a government, led urban conclave. But the problem is giving funds is easy. Mentoring is the difficult part. And that's where we come in. We do not give funds, even when seed funds are allocated to us through government programs, we never give it upfront. We do a phased out program of giving them funds so that we can mentor them, we can take them through the process, we can run MIS with them, we can get their results so that they become useful members of society. One of the things which I always insist is it's not a question of how many people you have granted money to, but how many companies have survived 3 to 5 years, how many jobs have been created. For me, that is incubation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Quite a lot to take up from your points, but I quite like the fact around confidence building and social incubation. I think those were such relevant points because our research across the globe tells us that the barriers for a woman's empowerment oftentimes is confidence. It's not just skills. A lot of the times, she needs the confidence, to run her entrepreneurship.
So
right?
may I just add one more thing here?
Yeah.
When we did this, for example, in Bengal, we did it in 3 states. In Bengal, we got 28,000 women applicants. From that, we took it down to 3,000. Those 3,000, we trained how to make a 1-page pitch.
Yeah.
And then we took it down to
So the
500,
elevator pitch,
and
is
then
it?
we trained them how to pitch.
Yeah.
So that's what confidence building
So
is.
that, yeah, I know. So the 10-second elevator pitch, literally at work, I guess. Yeah, no, so thank you so much. I'd love to move to Ms. Garima Kapoor. Yeah. We've heard about skilling. We've heard about an enabling environment from an incubation and very relevant skills. From a DFS point of view, the other enablers really to kind of push the, the self-employment and the confidence in, becoming entrepreneurs. What are the kind of financial products DFS believes are required, for the urban, livelihood? And I also wanted to kind of touch upon the work we have personally witnessed, which is the fantastic social security schemes, the JJBY, SBY, etc. We've literally enrolled millions of women into these schemes in our Jan Dhan work. And, how can these really be strengthened or leveraged for the informal urban worker who literally is a gig worker and who has no other support? What more should we be doing when it comes to actually leveraging? These schemes exist. So that's DFS has already made that happen, but what more should we be doing to ensure that it actually gets leveraged at the ground level?
Thank you. So to begin with, I will touch upon the larger idea of financial inclusion and how the government envisions the concept of financial inclusion through 3 dimensions: access, usage, and quality. So coming back to the topic of informal workspace in urban sector, looking through the lens of this financial inclusion and the 3 dimensions that I just mentioned. So access is the one part that we have almost touched quite well, that the segment is actually included in the formal financial system by offering various products, credit products. So that part we have achieved more or less. The second comes with the usage. Now, the providing access is not sufficient, of course. So to make the products more relevant, to make them more effective by using technology, by using innovations, that is another challenge that we foresee in future, maybe in present as well. Then comes the quality. So by quality, I mean to provide that financial ecosystem which is resilient, stable, I would say inclusive, and most importantly, trusted by the users. So these 2 dimensions we are working hard upon as in DFS. And just for an example's sake, there is a scheme called, we all know, Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. So to, to join the dots among all the access and usage, quality. So Jan Dhan Yojana is just not providing access to credit. right? Or to access, not in fact credit, just a bank account. It's just not a simple bank account. There are other facilities, other features which are relevant to the people that are also attached, like an OD facility up to 10,000 rupees. Then we have a free RuPay debit card to a segment which has a accidental insurance of up to 2 lakh rupees, as well as there are eligibility of getting the DBT. So it has gained the trust. And more than 56 crore accounts have been opened under this scheme. So in a sense, it's a wholesome, comprehensive, and empowering product. So such products we are requiring at this stage of time, especially for this sector. Why? Because what we feel and what we recognize is that this sector lags behind in, in tapping that, the basic potential that it contains. So such initiatives are being taken up by Government of India, like credit access. Mudra Yojana is very, I would say, most celebrated schemes of DFS in terms of credit to micro entrepreneurs and micro enterprises. And again, it has many beautiful features attached to it, like it's a collateral-free loan, and of course there are categories, 4 categories involved into it. Then there is PM Vishkarma Yojana, which is again very strategically, very meticulously designed. It has the component of skilling, it has the component of toolkit provision, and it has the component of market linkage, it has a component of financial access, credit support to the, basically the traditional artisans and the traditional craftsmen. So that is again another product that which DFS is promoting rigorously. We have listened from Mr. Professor Tantri about the success story of PM Swanidhi. Swanidhi as, I would say, a classic example of constant innovation. Thanks to MAUA, they have designed the scheme really well. And with the credit card being launched in upcoming days, so very innovative features has been attached to credit card, which were never thought of earlier. Like, I mean, in the history, we have not seen a credit guarantee for credit card. So that has come up. Most importantly, the relaxed underwriting for this segment is one of the most crucial things that has been, that will see the light in future. Similarly, there is the new mission, which will be replacing NULM. So again, a very unique feature has been attached to it. The JLG, the Joint Liability Group, which is also considered here, which was earlier a common working group, I would say, in rural setup, but it was not that common in urban setup. So we are exploring that part also. Other than this, the ecosystem, to strengthen the ecosystem, collaboration between banks and NBFCs is also being promoted by DFS these years. So this is one very unique concept of co-lending model, is also very popular these days, and which we are working rigorously to improve, to strengthen that model. So basically, banks are having access to very cheap, I would say, low-cost capital, and they have huge balance sheets, as well as they have, I would say, very rigorous and robust compliance mechanism. However, NBFCs have that technological agility. They have an edge over the last mile connectivity, last mile reach to the beneficiaries. So the collaboration between two will be very crucial to tap the unserved and underserved segments of the economy. So coming to the next topic of social security schemes. So we have 2 affordable life insurance and accident insurance schemes, PMJJBY, SBY. Hardly 20 rupees in a year, you'll get the cover of 2 lakh rupees. And for 436 rupees, the life insurance for 436 rupees, again, 2 lakh of coverage. So, but the challenges which we are actually facing these days is, even if despite it is so affordable, it is, the enrollments are stagnant, I would say. And the iteration rate is also going very high. So the major challenge we see is that the awareness is lacking right now. Also, the enrollment procedures are a little cumbersome for those segments which we are discussing right now, not for us, but those segments which are new to insurance. So that we are trying to capture through saturation campaigns at Gram Panchayat level, ULB level, that we are trying to spread that required awareness. Also, to simplify the enrollment mechanism, there is a working group that has been formed by the members of DFS, IRDAI, insurers, to simplify the process, enrollment, and to add to existing features. So that is also being considered actively.
Thank you.
So, and again, I would also like to mention the recent initiative made by LIC. They have started the scheme of Bima Sakhi.
Yeah.
So that has also done really well to spread the awareness, especially amongst women, and to help them in enrolling under these schemes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. So it's really the systemic approach and the comprehensive way in which you get sustainable solutions. Sohini, I'll move to you and bring in the whole private sector and the innovation, and how do we leverage innovation really to integrate digital payments with, microcredit, welfare delivery. We've done some work together, Women's World Banking and NPCI, but I'd love to hear from you what your broader thoughts and approaches in terms of how do you see it play out?
Yeah. Thank you, Kalpana, and I think it's been really interesting listening to the various, various elements of different things that need to come together as we move towards this whole aim of Viksit Bharat through urbanization and our urban centers. This is the National Urban Conclave, and as I was, as ma'am, you were mentioning, and I take a little bit of inspiration from Professor Tantri there to say, sit and think about what do we really need for us to become, benchmarks and towards that mission of Viksit Bharat, and trying to link it to what the minister, who's now left, but he, I think, in his very unique way, was talking about the opportunity that we all have and the fact that it is so important because, yes, India lives in its villages, but he made a very relevant point that people are going to measure our Viksitness, if that is an index, with the state of our cities, right? And as I sat and thought there, I was thinking about how will we measure this? How do you think one city is great versus another? And I think the one thing, at least that came to my mind, Kalpana, was this public infrastructure. I think what separates a great city from another, you can have great private infrastructure, but it's the public infrastructure, and the public infrastructure can be across the spectrum, whether it is roads, whether it is, schools, hospitals, anything. Like, for us to get to that level, we have to have great public infrastructure. And, I'm trying to link that. People, you might be thinking, where is she going? Why isn't she answering my question? And I think the one public infrastructure which I guess all of us can be extremely proud of, and maybe we should all hope to get all of our other public infrastructure to that level. It is the defining benchmark in the world today, is our digital public infrastructure in the form of the digital payments architecture that we have. There is no other system in the world which works as beautifully, which is as state-of-the-art tech, as real-time, and as inclusive. It's not just something which is built for a very small segment of the society. There's nothing like UPI that exists anywhere in the world. So if we as a country can make such great digital public infrastructure, then we should be able to also take that benchmark. And I'd leave that thought with all of the policymakers and other people here to say, how do we create that as a benchmark to say, if we are great in DPI, we should also be great and create, and maybe we pick up one or two themes there. But I'll go back to your question, and this was just, again, taking inspiration from your professor and sharing my thoughts as I was listening to others. So I think NPCI, National Payments Corporation of India, which I'm representing here today, already under the aegis of, the Reserve Bank of India and also the guidance of the Department of Financial Services, DFS, we've done a whole lot of things. You mentioned about microcredit, welfare distribution. If you look at some of the fantastic schemes that were outlined here, whether it is the direct benefits transfer, which is again a phenomenal model, and I think it works. NPCI's role there, is actually just to provide the rails, provide the technology and the infrastructure to ensure that whatever schemes the government is coming up with, we're able to deliver that in a foolproof method to the people who deserve. So we make it efficient for the government, for the policymakers, and we make it relevant for truly the people. So, we remove all the fake beneficiaries. We make it real time. So, it's not like there is 30 days between when the money was released to when the money reached, and then there's reconciliation. So all of that inefficiency, I think there's been a lot of things that we've been able to do. And it's not just UPI. There's a whole lot of other payment systems that NPCI runs. UPI just happens to be the most popular one, which everybody knows about. But we've been partnering in the disbursement of all of the direct benefits transfers, many of the direct benefits transfers. And I can say hopefully that we are adding a lot of value to the entire government and the public in that process. The PM Swanidhi scheme, which I was seeing a few, there were some videos being run, and I think it's phenomenal. We saw some of the beneficiaries of PM Swanidhi scheme. I think if we start with what that is doing is giving people an identity. And everyone who's sitting in the audience here, people are up there in the financial chain, most people, and you can understand that, what do banks do when they give you a loan? Because the focus finally is credit, right? All of these people we've spoken about, they need help to get out of the poverty trap. They need credit. India needs a lot of credit. So while NPCI's role is to say, yes, we've democratized payments, how do we now build on that layer of payments? Or how do we build the railroads on top of which, whether it is government, whether it's public companies, whether it's private enterprise, whether it's entrepreneurs, everybody can build products on top of that so that credit can be seamlessly discovered and delivered democratically. It's not something which is the purview of the rich get the cheapest loans and the poor then go borrow from informal sectors. So we're trying to build that bridge. And I think Garima ma'am spoke about the RuPay credit card, which is again something we are working under the aegis of the DFS itself to bring. So when these street vendors first get a Swanidhi card that establishes their identity, which is the equivalent of the KYC, which you do when you go to banks and get your loans. So the banks know who you are, then they have all of your credit history, and then they are very happy to give you loans. In fact, many people here must be getting calls from call centers, right? Sir, please loan le lijiye, ma'am ye le lijiye, aap car loan le lijiye, ye le lijiye. And oftentimes you're putting that phone down saying, don't disturb me, let me cancel this number. Imagine the huge difference between where you are, where you're trying to say, oh my God, your bank wale loan dena kab band karenge mujhe, to somebody who's dying to get credit, right? And I think as the DPI of the country, our responsibility is once people have this Swanidhi card, and I'm taking a small example, there's a lot more, but taking a small example. And this street vendor has now taken the loan, and we spoke about, I think research has shown once they take a loan, majority of them, a small percentage default, but majority of them pay it back, they come back. What happens then after that is you have to go and create the history. And that comes from linking it to UPI. We are already actually also dispersing a lot of benefits through UPI, and we are tracking those transactions are growing. I think in the first half, I was looking at my numbers, it's grown by about 18%. I think it needs to grow by 180%, which we'll all work together to get there. But that's that next level where the street vendor will have access to formal credit through a credit card, through UPI. There'll be transactions. And imagine that person one day getting a call and saying, nahi mujhe abhi loan nahi chahiye. Yeah. So that's the journey that we are trying to
Thank
enable.
you. Thanks, Sohini. That's a compelling vision indeed. Digital DPI has been undoubtedly the success story for India and Viksit Bharat, and and the role that it has played in inclusion is for everyone to see. I'll now move on to Mr. Vishal Goyal, right? And from an NHP perspective, what are the kind of credit products that you think? We all spoke about microcredit, we spoke about other kinds of products. But for the informal and the self-employed urban workers, what do you think are the relevant products that banks ought to be looking at, the formal financial system ought to be looking at, and what regulatory reforms to support it? Your inputs, please.
Very good evening, everyone. So let me just begin when our Honorable Prime Minister launched the Housing for All program in 2015, he mentioned that housing is not only just building houses, but it's building dignity, security, and opportunities. And that's exactly what a house and an address provides a family. Once a family has a house and an address, they are able to access formal financial credit. Second thing what we've observed is that once they have a pakka house, there's usually a increase in their income, and that actually improves their health and education. And that's exactly where NHB as an institution comes into the play. NHB as a apex development financial institution for the housing finance sector since the last 37 years has always taken the developmental role that it plays in the country for accessibility, for affordability, in providing access to formal housing credit. We basically are looking at these three broader roles for NHB. One is the supervisory role for the housing finance companies. Secondary is our financing role, both through the refinance window and our project lending. And the thirdly is our developmental and promotional role. So we have, over the last 37 years of its journey, come out with various products which are catering to these workers, both in rural and urban areas, who are not able to access formal financial credit, maybe because they do not have a salary slip or they do not have the income tax returns. And that is why where the housing finance companies, which NHB supervises, come into play. These housing finance companies, today we have 91 housing finance companies, which a branch network of around 10,000 spread across the country. These housing finance companies have actually come out with very good underwriting standards without having the income certificate or the salary slip, and they're able to provide micro loans to this particular category of borrowers. In fact, 45% of the housing loans of these housing finance companies is below 20 lakh. So, and as Madam Garima mentioned, the housing finance is dominated by the banks and the housing finance companies. I mean, if you see the share, the banks, including private, public, they all have around 82% of the market share. And the housing finance companies, which are specialized companies catering only for housing, have around 18%. And since the last 3 years, the co-lending model has emerged, wherein the banks use the advantage of accessibility because of the huge network, and the housing finance companies, on account of their turnaround time being better, usage of technology being better, and thirdly, the greater underwriting standards which they have actually developed over the years for these informal workers. Third aspect is NHB as a central nodal agency under the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, Urban. We've actually given a lot of focus on the interest subsidy scheme, and even in the other verticals of the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, we encourage those beneficiaries to actually avail top-up loans to complete their houses in case they're falling short of it. We also provide loans for their incremental housing in case they want to build something, additional rooms, additional toilets. And NHB has always been very changing in its policies, in its products. In fact, recently we've also come out with a product where we actually ensure that we give fixed rate loans only. Because you know, these floating loans, particularly for this segment, becomes very difficult to understand. So we actually have come out with a product where all these people can actually access a fixed rate loan, and they're able to understand that, okay, throughout the tenure of this loan, this is going to be my EMI, this is going to be my principal and interest.
Thank you so much. And with everyone's permission, we still have one more speaker. And it's been such an interesting conversation, so we've gone way over time. But still, I'd like to, ask Ms. Sangeeta. You come from the state of Gujarat, and it's been in the forefront of many successful livelihood programs. What do you think the other states can learn from some of the success that you've been able to achieve?
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. सबसे पहले तो ये बताना चाहूँगी कि as madam mentioned that we have a very good number of demographic dividend high rise there, or actually 50% are women of them, as we have high urbanization also 50% women are there. So we did more and more scheme for that. Yesterday we got a GREAT conclave at Gandhinagar. GREAT means Gujarat Rajya Institution for Transformation. It is one kind of Niti Aayog for Gujarat at the rate 2047 vision. So also there is a workshop for the women empowerment by the workforce, input in the livelihood and in urbanization. So there are many talks over there. तो मैं कुछ उसके बारे में भी बताना चाहूँगी कि उन्होंने जो बात की वो यही की कि ये बहुत बड़ा मास हमारे पास आ रहा है, अर्बनाइजेशन बढ़ रहा है, वर्कफोर्स चाहिए, केयर इकोनॉमी बढ़ रही है, तो उनके लिए हमें एक मैन पावर, एक वुमेन वर्कफोर्स तैयार करना पड़ेगा. तो स्किल स्कीम्स सारी चीज़ें इसमें बहुत ज़्यादा डालनी पड़ेगी. आज तक जो अच्छी स्कीम्स यहाँ से आई है NULM के थ्रू बहुत अच्छे से, गुजरात में तो पर्टिकुलरली उसमें बहुत अच्छा काम हुआ है. NULM में और PM स्वनिधि में गुजरात ने हमेशा फर्स्ट रैंक पे काम किया है. सक्सेस, जो आपका क्वेश्चन है उसका आंसर दूंगी कि सक्सेस हुई उसके 2-3 कारण थे. हमने बेसिक ग्राउंड से वर्क शुरू किया था और एक अच्छी पार्ट ये रहा कि हमारी बहनें जो ये SHG के फॉर्म में आई वो सारी चाहती थी कि वो कुछ करे, वो कुछ आगे करे. जैसे मैं रिसेंटली बताना चाहूँगी कि डे NULM तो अब स्कीम ख़त्म भी हो गई, 10 साल हो गए ये हम चला रहे थे, नई DJS लॉन्च होने वाली है. तो बीच में हमने क्या किया कि एक हमने अच्छी बहुत माई बैग इवेंट, माई थैली, जिसको थैली हम थैला बोलते हैं गुजराती में उसको, तो माई थैली इवेंट के है, पर वो माई बैग इवेंट हमने एक डाला. उसमें हमने क्या किया कि जो वेस्ट कपड़े हैं घर पर उसको लाइए, हमारी SHG के बहनें बैठेंगी, ULB पे बैठेंगी अपना मशीन वगैरह लेके, हमने स्पेस भी प्रोवाइड की वहाँ पे, और वहाँ वो आपका वेस्ट कपड़ा जो भी है उसमें से आपको एक अच्छा सा बैग बना के दे दी फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट. तो इससे क्या किया कि अगर आपका खुद का बैग है तो आप प्लास्टिक बैग यूज़ नहीं करेंगे, तो हमने प्लास्टिक फ्री के कन्वर्जन्स, इसमें हमने SBM को कन्वर्जन्स लिया, SBM से फंड लिया. जो भी बहनें काम कर रही है उनको हमने फंड SBM से दिया. वेस्ट मटेरियल आ रहा था तो वेस्ट मटेरियल कम भी हो गया, फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट है तो लोगों को कोई चार्जेस भी नहीं लगा, और जो हमारा जो प्लास्टिक वेस्ट था वो भी कम हुआ, कार्बन क्रेडिट भी मिला, एम्प्लॉयमेंट भी जनरेशन हुआ, और एक छोटी छोटी एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप जैसी बहनों को मिला कि वो खुद कुछ कर सकती है, बाहर निकल कर सकती है. तो थोड़ा हैंड होल्डिंग किया, अब बहनें अपने आप ही ये चला रही है, तो ये अच्छी इवेंट हो गई. ऐसे हमने स्वच्छता सखी किया. स्वच्छता सखी में भी हमने यही SBM के साथ ही कन्वर्जन किया कि हमारी बहनें जो हमारा वेस्ट कलेक्शन के लिए जो भी वान जाती है उसके साथ हमारी बहनें जाएंगी विथ अ गुड एप्रन एंड अ कैप, टैग ऑफ स्वच्छता सखी, और वहाँ के जाके IC एक्टिविटी करेंगी, सेग्रीगेशन ऑफ वेस्ट की कैसे करना है, क्या करना है, क्यों ज़रूरी है, ये सारा काम करिए. उनसे उनको एक रोज़गार भी मिला और उनको लोगों के साथ इंटरेक्शन का मौका मिला. सबसे बड़ी बात तो ये अच्छी हुई कि यहाँ से इंटरवेन करके SHG मेला हमने किया, पर्टिकुलर 100 स्टॉल का SHG बहनों का SHG मेला. एंड मैं आपको बताना चाहूँगी कि उस 5 दिन के मेले में हमने 39 लाख का बिजनेस किया. अब 100 स्टॉल थे और 39 लाख अगर इक्वली डिवाइड करें तो भी 4 लाख एक बहन को मिला. अब 4 लाख 5-6 दिन में मिलना बहुत बड़ी बात होती है. तो उसके बेस पे हमने क्या किया कि ये स्वदेशी मिशन लॉन्च हुआ तो हमने स्वदेशी मेला अनाउंस कर दिया. अब हमने 16 जगह पर स्वदेशी मेला किया. फुटफॉल बताऊँ मैं आपको 40 लाख फुटफॉल, और हमारा 10.5 करोड़ का बिजनेस किया. तो ये जो है तो ये इस तरीके से इनिशिएटिव लिए. अभी क्या है, छोटी छोटी चीज़ें करते हुए अभी यहाँ पे जो ये मेले लगे थे, हमने वाइब्रेंट गुजरात किया, उसमें भी हमने अपना एक स्टॉल लगाया था. तो वहाँ से ऑर्डर आते हैं इंटरनेशनल, नेशनल, जैसे अच्छी चीज़ें होती है तो बाहर भी लोग ले जाते हैं, बड़ा ऑर्डर देते हैं. तो छोटी छोटी बहनें अब एंटरप्रेन्योर बन रही है. तो ऐसे छोटे छोटे इनिशिएटिव लेके गुजरात ने आगे किया है. बट देयर इज़ आई से के मोर येट टू कम एंड मोर वेज टू गो. तो अभी और ज़्यादा अच्छी स्कीम भी लाना ज़रूरी है और अच्छे से सक्सेसफुल इस वर्कफोर्स जो हम वुमेन का कह रहे हैं, वुमेन एम्पावरमेंट का कह रहे हैं, तो उसको एक एम्पावर करने के लिए हमको एक बहुत अच्छे से स्कीम डाल के उनको आगे के आगे एक गाइडलाइन करना है, एक दिशा देना है और उनको आगे बढ़ाना है.
Thank you so much. This brings us to the end of the panel, and I said way over time, but what a pleasure to talk to all of you, and thank you so much for contributing with all your ideas. Thank you, everyone.